kicking off a brand new series called Tightrope. And Joel, you had the privilege to kick it off, and I really enjoyed it. It was challenging. I loved your passage. I loved your video clips. It was just
First thing I have to say, Jason, is you rock.
Oh
I am
gosh.
curious to see how all this is going to come together.
know.
But yes, the weekend, I was challenged also talking about our priorities, aligning our priorities with God's priorities. And when you live that way, when you live in that balance, even though the world may not think you look balanced, but you experience that rich and satisfying life when you are living in God's priorities.
Yeah, it's so powerful. And you asked a question of all of us, and we responded, and you had some pretty good responses there.
Yeah. What if your calendar could talk?
Yes.
What's one word? And I said one word because I know I would get 5 or 6 out of people.
Yes.
But what is one thing your calendar would say back to you if it could talk? Now I want to ask you, Jason, what would you say if your calendar? I'm sure you're a digital calendar guy.
I'm a digital calendar guy.
But what would it say?
Well, today, my calendar would have said, "Why do these meetings keep moving?" Because I had this one where we were trying to shoehorn something in there.
Yes.
For those of you under 30, shoehorn helps you put your shoe on. I just realized I really dated myself with that. But a shoehorn, but like trying to get it stuck in the calendar. And it was in the afternoon. And then all of a sudden it was in the morning when I moved something else. And then it moved to another spot. And so that's more than five words.
Did I do that?
No, it was not you this time. But
not this time.
But this time. Not this time. Sometimes. But I want to know what your calendar would say.
Wow, my calendar would say burning the candle at both ends. How many words is it, burning the candle? Anyway, we are not complaining. I enjoy living the life God has given us but there's just so much going on. I'm in pastor school, which is a whole video in and of itself. Having kids who are teenagers, late nights, early mornings. I've got a daughter who has to be at track practice at 6 in the morning, all those things. So it is nonstop all day long. I like it, but sometimes I do get tired and sometimes I get a little cranky. Don't tell anybody.
People can't tell. But here's the reality though, right? This tightrope we're talking about, there is an element of our priorities, and sometimes things sneak in and get out of balance. And so you asked, you made a funny joke about the rocks and that sort of thing.
Funny, but thank you.
It was on the humor scale.
Humor scale.
I love that we get to have fun with one another.
We do have fun.
But as you were going through your Bible passage this weekend, and especially your clip from The Chosen, just so powerful. And that I just love that, and especially when Jesus was talking to Martha and says, priorities. He says priorities right in that video clip. It doesn't say that in the scripture, in the text, but as they've dramatized it, said priorities. It just made me think about my calendar, that tension I feel sometimes that my priorities are out of balance. And then he says there's only one thing that matters, and that is the things that won't pass away, like all that other stuff. And so this illustration came to me 3 or 4 years ago, and many of you may have seen Stephen Covey did a illustration with rocks, and he told his students, hey, if you you think you could get all of this stuff into one jar? And they start with the sand and try and put the rocks in, and it just doesn't happen. And there's about priorities. But it made me think about this, the fact that illustration misses one thing, and that's God pouring into our lives, right? He wants to overflow our lives and wants to just continually, build us up, and he's got a purpose and a plan for us, and he's pouring into our lives. So today I've introduced
water.
Yes,
this is
representing him
so
pouring into our lives.
So even better than Stephen Covey's.
I'm
impressed.
I'm not saying that impressed. You haven't seen it yet. I don't know. Well, that's wait to be seen. But as I was thinking about the passage, the scripture passage, and Martha, I can really relate with Martha and get bogged down in those details of being ready and cooking the food and doing all that stuff. And my family will tell you, when it comes to Thanksgiving, we have lots of people over. We love it. But I'm the last one to eat because I'm being Martha. And Mary is over there sitting on the couch, and I'm frustrated because she should get up and help me, right? So it made me think about this. And so these represent our priorities in our lives.
Yeah.
And, we've got the big things that should be our top priorities. These big rocks represent our top priorities. And these others, those other things that creep into our lives, getting the kids to school, all of that, and the mid-sized priorities. Yeah. And then here's all that minutia. All that little stuff, think about Martha in that clip as she was going on, and she's like, what about this? And what about this? What about this? It's all of this. And the reality is we get our priorities out of order. For me, I often find myself, taking the big things and, I'll make them pretty important and set them here. And then these moderate ones down here below it. But I still am worried about all that minutia, all that little stuff that's happening. And the fact is, we're going to open these valves up here.
We're going to make a mess.
We might make a mess. But God is pouring into my life no matter what, even if I have my priorities out of balance. The challenge is it's not going anywhere because I'm so consumed with the little things in my life that it's slowly sifting through. It's still in my life, but not to the fullness that it could be. When I reset my priorities and I put the big things first and I move the little details that I get so bogged down with, and I set my priorities in the right order.
Wow.
When he starts to pour into my life, it goes over and through and continues to pour out into all areas of my life. Making you nervous, Joel?
I'm like, what kind of mess are we gonna have to clean up?
I don't know.
That's like the sand priority.
That's all the details, and it continues. He continues to pour into me. I guess this probably opens up more. Oh, look at that!
Oh, look at that!
And it flows in, and then it flows into the other priorities in my life, and even into the minutia, the small things, into all areas of my life. Instead of getting bogged down into those small things and staying there, it continues to go through all my life.
I like it.
And so for me, it's that reminder that I need to get my priorities in order. And so we're going to take a moment in the groups for you guys to kind of talk about this concept and what it means in your life. And then we're going to come back together. We're going to give you a really practical tool, the 168 tool, to look at our priorities and potentially reorganize them.
Hey, welcome back. And I really pray that your discussion you just had in your group was fruitful and transformative as we live this out, walk this out. And Jason, I do want to just quickly circle back to this illustration you did. And this is so profound, but so helpful, not just looking at our priorities, but the order with which we have our priorities ordered. And I think about that sand, and I'm right there with you, where I filter so many things personally through really things that are like sand, things that really don't matter, even things that won't matter in a day or even an hour, consume so much of my time and energy. And when we get to this and we're really looking at the big rocks, the mission of God and how God designed us to be, we focus on this and these things, and you will see how the water flows through. So thank you for that.
Well, Joel, it's a privilege to be able to teach in that way and to use an illustration. It really helps things come to life for me. But things are vying for our time from all different angles.
Yeah. Well, speaking of time, I want to jump into this tool. I love this, the 168 tool. Why don't you unpack that tool for us?
Oh, I'd be happy to. And the reason this is called the 168 tool is because there's 168 hours in the week. And the reality is, I think we can all agree to that, right? There's not extra hours next week. It's 168, right?
I wish.
And we always think, we could squeeze another thing in. We can make another hour. I'll sleep less tonight. I'll do that sort of thing. But we put this tool together for you. And at the top of it here, we really are looking at the different, what I call vital signs, different areas of our life that are vital part of our life. And we need to have balance in all of those areas. And there's a little description there of that, our personal, the vital signs in our personal area. That's our physical, our intellectual, our emotional. It's going to the gym. It's reading books. It's those types of things that refuel us in that way. Our faith, that encompasses all of our faith. Going to church, Bible study, being in group here, and going to service on the weekend, all of that. Our family, that's those closest to us, our extended family, those that we're related to. And you've got kids at home, and you've got extended family actually in town right now. That's our family in that area there. And then there's our vocation. That's how we get our money, our job, those types of things. And we're all at different places in our lives. Some of us are just starting out in our careers. Others are hustling 3 and 4 jobs. And some of you guys are retired. But, our vocation is still a part of our life. And then community. It's those around us, our friends, our neighbors, those that we interact with in community. And it's all about all of those things and having balance in that. And that doesn't mean that it's equally divided up amongst those, but we often forget one area of it. Joel, you're going to school right now.
Oh, yeah.
You're working, you've got kids at home, all of that. And so, your time looks a little bit different than mine. I'm not in school like you are, but that's taking up a huge chunk of time.
It is.
And for me, it's all towards that God-given purpose. That he's using everything in our lives for his purpose. And as we talk about this, it's like he's pouring into us, and he wants us to live on purpose. And so, where the tool really kicks in is down here on the bottom, and this is the 168 tool. And along the side there, you've got the vitals and the different areas, and we've added one there, and that's healthy margin. And you can see that I've put in that in the week that you use 84 hours for that. And you'd say, well, that's half of my week. But the reason we say that's healthy margin is 8 hours of sleep is what is recommended for an adult. I know you probably can't remember the last time you had 8 hours of sleep.
I can't even spell 8 hours of sleep.
And that's why we call it healthy margin, because it's like, I'm not getting it, but I should get that. It also includes, you can see there in the notes, our commute back and forth to work, or taking the kids to school, and activities, and ball games. All of that. It includes eating, preparing food.
One of my favorites.
Yeah, that's my favorite. If we broke that down by hours that I eat a week, it probably be kind of scary.
Next week on the video, Pastor Jason will tell us.
It'll be confession time. But in that, it's our driving and taking the kids to school and helping them with homework, cleaning up the house, preparing food, all of that, and having that healthy margin in our life. So that leaves us 12 hours a day for the rest of those things. And so how are we working through that? So what you do in that first column there is current in each of those areas. Your personal, how much time do you spend at the gym, and how much time do you spend reading for you, not for class? And write down a realistic number there. Then faith. How much time do you spend a week on faith? Your daily time with God, time in prayer, in the Bible, in group, at church, with your family, and continue through all of that. Now, the reality of what happens, we put that down and we go, okay, let's add that up. And it's more than the 168 hours of the week, because we've been robbing part of the sleep time and those types of things, which our bodies reset, right? I mean, it's like, I don't need sleep. And then all of a sudden on day 5, you have to take a nap because you need sleep. And so you have the current. And then this is where the real work comes in. Okay, how am I going to get that in balance? Because you may not have any time set aside for you. Many of you at home may be saying, personal time. What, me time? What does that look like? And so put it down there, and then trying to get that balanced out. And then I challenge you to do the percentages over there on the right-hand side, because that, to me, is where it puts the proportions into play. It's like, wow, I spend 60% of my time on my vocation, 30% of the rest of that day. Like, wow, that's a lot. I need to get that in balance. And you talk to my wife, look at my calendar. She'd probably say things are out of balance. So, and I don't know if you feel that way. You feel like you're on a tightrope with your time, Joel?
Oh my goodness, yes. It's interesting you bring this up, Jason, because when I started school back in January, I had to intentionally look at the things I was giving my time to. It's like, all right, things are going to suffer. Am I willing for my family to, time with my family to suffer? Am I willing for my personal time to suffer, my faith to suffer, my job to suffer? And so it has been very intentional decisions of what I pulled back on. And I don't think I'm going to tell you what I pulled back on, but I knew some things were going to definitely to suffer in all this. And I will say this, my time with God, I said, I am going to protect that time. That is my time with God, my time with family is the most important rocks that I have. And so I make sure I work hard to make sure things don't suffer. But otherwise, it's been really interesting to kind of dig into that. So I look forward to digging into this in my group.
Yeah, and as a group, you guys are going to do this. There's not an expectation that you're going to finish this tonight. This is something for you to work on throughout the week. You can come back to it, but take some time to discuss it, what you're thinking, what you're feeling about your calendar and those types of things in your group. And, just really lean on one another because we're all dealing with this at some level. So thanks for allowing us to join in.